everybody. Welcome to Perspectives. I'm Sam Jones, and my first guest today is Ginny Hensley with the Tulsa Housing Authority. Welcome.
Thank you, Sam. I'm grateful to be here.
Well, tickled to death to have you. First chance we've had to really sit down.
Yes, sir.
How much of a problem do we have compared to other cities?
I think across the United States, you're seeing similar problems or issues, challenges that we are experiencing in Tulsa. That is because rent amounts are rising steadily from 2020 to today. Rents in Tulsa alone are over 40% higher than they were back in 2020. So you're seeing this rise in rents, but what you're not seeing is a rise in income and in salary. And so you have this big delta that creates a real stagnation in the market. And so we've got people that need desperately affordable housing, and we just don't have enough. Tulsa is certainly a little bit more insulated in terms of the cost of rent. We're never probably going to make the top 10 list of most expensive places to live. But it's relative. Because, you know, even though the total amount may be less, it's relative based on the incomes that we see here in Oklahoma.
You've secured financing for an entity known as the Hilltop. Tell us about that.
Sure. The Hilltop is a development that is actually located next door to our office at Tulsa Housing Authority. It used to be home to Sunset Plaza, which was an affordable housing community owned by an out-of-state landlord who had let that property go, you know, fully downhill. I mean, almost literally, it was literally almost falling down the hill. So the city deemed it a chronic public nuisance, and we were able to then acquire that site, and we've demolished it. And last year, we're able to secure financing to start the construction process. It'll bring 100 affordable units to the downtown Tulsa area, with 20 of those units being set aside for individuals or families who are exiting chronic homelessness.
Why not more? Does it have to be able to rejuvenate its own funds?
That's certainly a part of it. Public supportive housing, PSH for short, is something that Tulsa has a significant need for, but it is very expensive to sustain. And so this is our way of participating and showing up for the community for people who are exiting homelessness, to be able to be that next step for them to hopefully get them, you know, additionally stabilized so they can then maybe move on to further their lives.
Have there been studies conducted to find out why some folk just don't want to go inside? They want to sleep on the streets?
You know, it's a complicated issue, and everyone arrives to homelessness by a different path. And I think sometimes it is a little bit of a misunderstanding or misnomer that someone wants to live outside. Sometimes that is due to mental capacity, their mental state. Sometimes it's because they may be struggling in other ways, maybe with substance use or other things like that, that once you get those things out of the way, they absolutely want to be housed and want to have a safe, stable place to call home.
Well, it strikes me as an odd thing, but very few states in this country have as many problems to deal with in terms of homelessness as we do. It seems as though we have more than our share. And yet, when I really look at the stats from, say, Missouri or Chicago or wherever, no, we don't. They're ahead of us.
Absolutely. This year, the Tulsa Regional Chamber took their inner city visit to Salt Lake City, and I was able to be a part of that. And part of that programming was to hear from officials there in Salt Lake City about homelessness. And I will just be honest, I felt like there were people in Tulsa that probably could have taught them a thing or two, because what we're doing is working. You know, what Tulsa is doing is working. We just need more of it. And I think that with the current city administration, with Mayor Nichols and his administration at the city, we're doing a really good job of taking the right steps to mitigate the problem even more quickly.
You know, I sometimes wish I could throw a bag of rocks at folks who come along and say, well, if they don't want to be homeless, just tell them to get a job.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. It's really hard. And, you know, we talk a lot at the Housing Authority about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That foundation, the very bottom of that pyramid is housing, shelter. Because without that, how can you achieve these other elements? It's really, really hard to find a job or to get the health care that you need, get the education that you need if you don't have a safe, stable home. So that really is that fundamental foundational piece to helping people thrive.
Healthcare is a magic phrase. And when you have children involved, and many of them have children, many of them live in little car bodies or in tents or whatever. And with the kind of weather that this week they're talking, this show will be seen for the next week or so, but the kind of weather that's headed our way right now with snow and ice, they're going to find some bodies out there.
The good thing is that the city of Tulsa has opened a winter shelter. There's more access to winter shelter than there ever has been in Tulsa, which is a good thing. Is it enough? Probably not. And you know, it's a challenge to make sure that everyone that's experiencing homelessness throughout the community knows about these resources, knows how to access those resources. In fact, tomorrow is the point in time count, which is an annual accounting. It happens every year in January, where volunteers, I'll be there tomorrow, go out into the community and try to find individuals who are experiencing homelessness, both sheltered and unsheltered. That helps us get a good count of who it is in our community that's experiencing homelessness. We also survey them and ask what they need, the cause of their homelessness. And I will say the last 2 years in a row, the number one cause of homelessness that was cited by the individuals who were surveyed was lack of affordable housing.
We've only got about a minute and a half, and I understand before I even ask the question, I know there's no simple solution here. But is there a simple solution that we're overlooking or bypassing? Is there a button we need to push somewhere to help alleviate this problem?
At its core, homelessness is a housing problem. It is the lack of a home. And Tulsa has a documented need for affordable housing. And so I think the more that we can funnel resources into the construction and the development of affordable housing, the better off we'll be. We also need to be creative around zoning and permitting. And again, the city's been a great partner with that as well. So we're headed in the right direction, but we really need that influx of funds, frankly, to be able to move the needle in any sort of meaningful way. And I think we're on the right track. I think it's just going to take some time to maybe get others on board with us.
Jenny, I would love to have you back. Would you entertain the thought of coming back after we get into, say, February?
Yeah.
And we've got more of a grip on what's going on this year?
Certainly. Be happy to.
We'll do that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Short break. We'll be back right after this. And we're back. Recently, we said goodbye to a member of the Tulsa community that made waves all over this country. I'm talking about Billy Parker. Billy was a guest on Perspectives back in 2014, and we decided to go ahead and pull up a portion of that and play it for you. So with guidance from high on high, sit back and relax and take a listen and a watch of the late Billy Parker.
I was born in Tuskegee, Oklahoma, and it all started there. From the musical family standpoint, my mother played piano, when I was a little baby. We moved to Bristow, Oklahoma when I was about 2 years old, and then at 5 years old we moved to Tulsa. And there's so much that's happened in the meantime that it would take longer than 30 minutes to tell you all of it, but a lot of great things have happened to me, thanks to God and thanks to family and thanks to the love of the people.
Well, I'd be curious to know, Billy, were there folks around to train you, or did you just kind of learn on the job?
Actually, my mother, when I was 11 years old, went to one of the, they used to call it hawk shops, and got me a guitar, okay, on First Street in Tulsa, as a matter of fact, and bought me a Stella guitar. And so at the time, I also had her buy me a book, a Mel Bay book, to learn to play guitar. So I learned the chords from that, and just was excited and listening to the Grand Ole Opry and kind of playing along with it.
Had
You
no
know.
idea then you'd be on the Opry someday.
No, I had no idea at that
Yeah.
time, no.
That's incredible. Over the years, I can't think of a name you didn't work with. You worked Bob Wills a couple of times, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked with Bob Wills on a special tour. Actually, I didn't work for Bob. You might say that Bob worked for us because we were on a Happy People's tour, and I worked 5 dates with Bob. It was his, Bob Wills and Ernest Tubb. It was their show.
Yeah.
And I happened to be working with Ernest Tubb at the time. And so what we did, we backed Bob Wills and had the opportunity to work with Bob Wills. He never did hire me. He probably heard me back there playing guitar out of tune. But anyway, it was fun playing with him.
His health had already started to change, hadn't it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he had already had a stroke, and was just, playing the dates, just him and a guitar. And that's a guitar player and the band that backs him. And we happened to be the band at that time.
I'm going to stick with the music side of it for a minute. Then I want to get into the radio element. I'm just going to throw some names out.
Okay.
And you give me a reaction, all right? Of if you worked with them, and if you did, a little bit about them. Ernest Tubb.
Oh, Ernest Tubb was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. In 1968, I joined Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours. I left Tulsa. In fact, his wife and I left Tulsa. Jerry and I, we moved to Nashville. We talked about it. Cal Smith was leaving. He had a hit record, The Lord Knows I'm Drinking, for one, and The Country Bumpkin, a great hit for Cal. And so Cal called me and asked me if I'd like to replace him on the Ernest Tubb shows. I said I'd like to, but I doubt if we'll be leaving Tulsa because my wife and I, we love it here, and we have our first child, Billy Joe, and I doubt if we'll leave. But anyway, I talked with the wife, to make a long story short, and we did accept the job in Nashville. And I remember we left and had the big people come out and move us, and I think it was pretty expensive to make the move, but we did. And they took all the furniture and everything and went to Nashville, and we headed behind them and headed out for Nashville. And make a long story short, I worked for Ernest about 2.5 years, and Billy, my young boy, was growing a little bit, and so we decided we'd book Ernest a while, and we did with Atlas Bureau. We booked him on the road, and at the same time we were thinking about getting back to Tulsa. So needless to say, we left E.T. and the Troubadours after all these wonderful times that I had with Ernest Tubb and the Troubadours, and learned so much about the business on the bus, riding here and there, but we just had to come back home. So I mentioned the fact we went there, and the movers moved us, and when we came home, I rented a U-Haul it, and Jerry drove the car, and I brought us home.
Big difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting to me how what you just said parallels something Roy Clark said about the move he had to make, when he was first starting his career. And the same thing happened to you. I guess a lot of guys and gals have to go through that. They have to make a choice because you can't go national from this part of the country.
That's exactly right. At that time, now a lot of people have gone to Nashville from our part of the country or national, but at that time, no. And so you look forward to a career in the business, and so you take chances. And we took the chances. I recorded for Decca Records because of Ernest. He got me the contract. Everything was good, very good in the business, except for the fact being away from home, being away from family. And I didn't like it, and needless to say, she didn't like it either, I don't think.
All right, Red Foley.
Yes.
Pat Boone's father-in-law.
Yes.
You worked with him.
Yes, I worked. It's funny. Might be called ridiculous the way I got the job with Red Foley, but actually Red Foley didn't hire me. A guy by the name of James Coleman hired me, and he was a promoter. He promoted shows all over the country, of course, with Red Foley and the group from the Ozark Jubilee. And so I sold tickets on the telephone to different associations, say the Lions Club, would be having a show with Red Foley and the Ozark Jubilee or any other association, then I would go in town with James Coleman and get on the telephones and sell tickets.
In advance.
Yeah. Sell them advance tickets, actually to companies that would buy books of tickets. And I got pretty good at that. But then when Red Foley would come to that town, I'd get to do a couple of songs with him. And so when I say I worked for Red Foley, I can't say I actually worked for him, but I worked with him. I kind of edged my way in there through the promotion thing end of it, and had the opportunity to sing with him, and I enjoyed it. I was, compared to Red Foley, I was a little guy, and he'd always pat me on the head and said, "Sing that song, son." I'd sing a couple of songs, and I'd get off stage and go mind my own business. But it was fun.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I'm afraid to.
Really?
Yeah, I've thought about it. John Woolley, as a matter of fact, talked to me about it, said, "We're going to write that book." I never did feel that my career and my life was really that important to write.
You're wrong, and I'd buy the first copy.
Well,
I would buy the first copy.
I appreciate that.
Great reading. You and I have had some mutual friends. Leon McCullough.
oh yes, Leon was
was a
a
good
wonderful
friend.
man. Wonderful.
Did you ever
guy.
work with him?
I've worked the Cimarron Ballroom, and again, I've worked for everybody. I've worked for Leon when he had the Cimarron Ballroom. As a matter of fact, Leon bought a library of songs that I had in a publishing company, bought my publishing company and the whole works. I had the opportunity to work with him and to work with Jim Reeves at the Cimarron Ballroom, with Farron Young at the Cimarron Ballroom, and very, very many, I can't remember all the artists that I did work with. I had the opportunity to open for them at the Cimarron.
Wow.
My life kind of consists of opening for people.
You know, I got to tell you, I got to share a story with you about, that Leon gave me many years ago. He was talking about his wife was in really poor health, and he and Bob Wills were playing a show at Cain's, and for some reason that night, after they played the first half of the show, Bob lit a cigar and says, "I want to talk to you." So they walked outside, and he thought he was going to get fired. And there was sitting this gorgeous Pontiac convertible. And he said it was green. He said, "Prettiest car I ever saw." And said, Bob looked at him and said, "How's the wife feeling?" And he said, "I had to tell him she's not doing well. In fact, she was in the hospital right then." And Bob said, "What do you think of that car?" A brand new one. "So I think it's beautiful." And he said, handed him the keys. He said, "Well, it's yours."
Oh, no, I had never heard that story. That's interesting. I'd
Gave
never
him
heard
that car. And they got it for him from a Pontiac dealer here in town. You
Probably
know,
Watt Henry or,
it may have been.
yeah.
And he said it was all he
Or
could
I
do.
could say Ernie Miller
Ernie Miller Pontiac.
because that's who I was with.
That was Billy Parker in better days, and we'll miss him. Short break, more after this. My final guest today, well, you can call them unusual, or you can call them folks with a vision, and that's what I prefer. Ed and Jackie Fogle. They're going to be touring Route 66 in their 1926 Hupmobile, which is parked in the back lot
Right.
as we speak. Where'd you get it?
I found that about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, when I realized the centennial of Route 66 is coming up, and we started thinking about it. So we said, well, let's do it again, because we'd done it once before in our Cadillac for our honeymoon. And I said, well, let's do it again. But this time, let's do it in a 100-year-old, what's called an orphan car, which would be by a manufacturer that isn't in business anymore. So I started looking and looking, and there's a book called Hemmings Motor News that has all these ads for old cars in it. And I found one out in Arizona. A fella had retired out there, and he'd had his own private museum in Omaha, and he took two of the cars out there with him, and this is one of them. And I said, Hupmobile, now that would be the right car. And it's a sedan, so it's got plenty of room in it and everything. And so I went out there, checked it out, bought it, had it shipped back home, and started working on it to get it back in, get it in this kind of condition.
Now that's a beautiful, to me, that's a
There it
beautiful
is.
vehicle. Absolutely beautiful. Is that yours now we're looking at?
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
That's a champion, man. That really looks nice. What kind of mileage do you pull on that? Do you know?
We need to figure that out. We'll do that as we go along because we've only driven it 5 or 10 miles so far.
It doesn't have a gas gauge.
You're
So
kidding.
you have to do it with a stick to kind of keep an eye on how much gas you have.
Yeah.
Boy, that's really from years ago.
Yeah.
You've driven Route 66 before. When was that? That was you were in a Cadillac then?
Yeah, that was in 2001 when we got married. And 1959 Cadillac convertible.
Top down?
Top down all the way.
Every inch.
Sweet. What'd you learn?
Oh, there was so much to learn. And there's so many. What was really interesting, one thing we learned is how many people from other countries come to drive Route 66. And that was in '01. So I imagine this year it's going
It's
to
going
be
to
something.
be bumper to bumper.
Yes.
And as I understand it, there are several things that they're doing. You know, Michael Wallace, who wrote the definitive book on Route 66, lives here, and he's going to be involved. And I know that there's some organizations now that are putting old cars in a parade that they're going to take, and that's going to happen on one day.
Right.
They're going to drive Route 66. Are you all going to be a part of that?
We are. Our plan is tentatively weather dependent. We start off third week of April, say, make it to Springfield, Missouri by April 30th. That's when they're going to have a big kickoff
From
celebration. in
Chicago to Springfield.
Yeah, start off in Chicago and make it Springfield, and then come on down here, a few days at home in Claremore, Miami, and Tulsa, and then finish it up, hopefully to be back in time for that parade on May 30th. We're registered in that parade now.
Boy, if Cyrus Avery were alive right now, he'd be he'd be tap dancing, wouldn't he?
He would. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Oh, it'd be interesting as heck. My wife and I drove it both directions one summer
Both.
and went up the Northeast for, as far as it would go, and then turned around, came back and went out toward California. I was pretty amazed at the old time malt shops, cafes, restaurants that you
Right.
found along the way. The inns, the motor inns. They don't have those anymore. But you found them on Route 66 now.
And some of them are being restored and brought back for this, and particularly for the centennial, but to continue on because this has become a deal that's going to go on and on, I think, for as long as we can imagine.
Well, I know we've had a lot of celebrities over the years who have made the trek, and a lot of folks who have written about it. I don't think anybody will ever take away the experience my wife and I felt when we made that journey. Because when I got up to Chicago, Route 66 splits into 3 roads.
Right.
Military, civilian, and nobody else knows what the other one's for.
Yeah.
And I bought all kinds of refrigerator stickers when I got back, but that was quite an experience for me.
We have a set of maps that they put out specifically for Route 66, and hopefully it's correct in the different alignments it has. So we're hoping to drive each alignment. Takes a little back and forth to do it, but that's our plan there, is to see every inch of that road that ever was.
We got the Hudmobile parked in the parking lot right now.
Correct.
Gosh, I got to get out and see it. Thank you all for coming in.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Please be safe and try to enjoy the ride.
We'll do
Just
it.
enjoy the ride.
We
We'll be
will.
going
We'll just take
slow,
our time and take our time and cruise along.
Take a backup gas stick, will you? We'll see you folks later.
Thank you.
Short break? Well, no short break. We'll see you all next week. We're all out of time. Bye-bye.